Welcome to our Facebook Live of Accenture Tech Vision 2018. My name is Reshma Nugehalli. I have with me Rajiv.
Hi.
And Sumitra.
Hello, everyone.
We'll be talking about, like I said, our Tech Vision 2018. It's been an interesting year, and Feb 14th is etched in my mind. Not for the reason that you're laughing about, but our Tech Vision was released on that day. Every year, we release our Tech Vision, which talks about what's happening within technology, the hot trends that's around. And this is a culmination of our knowledge, our research, and our innovation and thought leadership. Last year, the theme was technology for people. And if I look back on things that happened, right, 2017 was all about personalization, experience. It was forefront. It was literally ingrained in every aspect of what we did, the way we worked, the way we lived in front of politics. Everything was around this. Did you know an average kid spends about 8.5 hours a day on some kind of a media? And 65% of us, me included, end our day with checking our phone. And first thing in the morning, we're checking our phone, right? I mean, technology is so much, we're so dependent on it, or it's so much part of us. Now, that's kind of like, usually when you think about it, technology was something that was a peripheral. Right now, it's at the core of the human experience itself. The premise of our Tech Vision 2018 is building on that, right? How you move enterprises closer to center of people's life. It's not about how you're using technology within enterprises, but rather how are you reinventing, reimagining new businesses for yourself. Now, let's look at the 5 trends of this theme. Rajiv, you want to walk us through the 5 trends?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Reshma, for that. I think if you look at the Tech Vision and what does it mean to you or to the industry or to the governments or citizens at large, there are key takeaways when I look at and read with that lens, with whatever persona you put onto it. And the Tech Vision 2018, we were talking about intelligent enterprise unleashed. And intelligent enterprise unleashed means, if you take 2 steps down, there are 5 core themes which is coming out of it. The first one, we see artificial intelligence getting penetrated in most of the places, including our homes. We talk to Alexa, we talk to Siri, Google Assistant. We have seen the new use cases coming out from Alexa and Siri and the Google around that. I think the key part over here is that how do we graduate the AI into responsible AI? And that's what the Tech Vision talks about, citizen AI. Now, the next step of it is bringing the digital experience to the forefront, what we call as end of distance, through extended reality. And extended reality is a mix of virtual reality, which could of mixed reality, augmented reality, various forms, factors to it. I think end of it, it improves the experience. It helps to redefine the business process. It helps you to rethink how things need to be redefined, right? There's a question around distance always, be it on a training, whether you talk about the skill availability for a surgery, it could as well be some of the unreachable places like oil rigs and others. So how do we actually bring this technology into it is what business is keenly exploring and experimenting today. Now the third part, which I want to call as the heart and soul of Tech Vision this year, is about data veracity. And data veracity is nothing but, are we actually working about the good data? The analogy for data always we hear is that data is the fuel of the economy. And if you apply that analogy over there, the fuel, if it is not a good fuel, it can pollute the entire ecosystem. And that's exactly what data will do if you don't have good data. So how do you ring fence and how do you put the guardrails around data to bring the good data for all the decisions and the sub-processes is a key theme around data veracity. The fourth part is about frictionless business. And it's very interesting to see we are experiencing the benefit of frictionless business in most of the places, right? the success stories about Amazon, the Ubers of the world, and you take any of the example, it is not coming from one enterprise. It's an integrated partner ecosystem together coming to bring a seamless experience to the customer. Now, what does it bring? That if you want to integrate these business all together, traditionally, they are not congenial to talk to that different environment. That means there are certain roadblocks which create friction to it. And technically, if you look at it, it is about dissecting and unbundling the so-called legacy monolith to provide APIs, microservices to interact and leverage the power of larger ecosystem. Now, while we do that, one of the challenge again when multiple partners come on to same platform to serve a customer is about trust, and that's where some of the technologies like blockchain, where trust is inherent in the technology architecture itself, will be very useful. The last and most important theme I would say is that Internet of Thinking, which is different from Internet of Things. So the journey from things to thinking is intelligence. So how do you push the intelligence to the edge computing, edge device is a good example. So I was going through some of the experiments happening in the banking, if I quote, there are certain companies who are working on IoT device like wearables, which can give you a shock when your expense or spend pattern, exceeds a threshold.
So how do you?
We don't need that.
It's about you can actually control the grade of the shock over there. You can have mild shock as well to control your spending pattern, right?
My husband gets the shocks.
So these are some of these are the 5 trends which comes in tech vision. We'll get into each of these one by one. AI is a key thing, and I know that Sumitra is very passionate about that, and she was talking about it just before we started this. Yeah. So why don't you share your thoughts around that?
I think
Sumitra?
More than passion, Rajiv, it's also about the fascination with AI, right?
Absolutely.
AI is one area probably time immemorial. Human mind has been so fascinated with. If you look at Hollywood, Bollywood movies, robots are either fighting with us or fighting against us, or in Bollywood we make them dance to Chamak Chalo, right? So it can do everything. But I think it's about how AI has become so much more accessible to us, which is different today. If you think about it, like, how Pichaya made a pitch about Google Assistant is still fresh in our mind. Right. So it is literally coming out of your movie screens or TV screens into your living rooms today. Now, this is where the whole concept of citizen AI comes in, because it is about now that we all know the potential of AI, like it can learn by itself, it can make decisions by itself. The point is that what do you want the AI or a machine to make decisions, and what kind of decisions do you want it to make? How do you ensure that they would be responsible in the decisions that they are making? And that is the whole concept of this citizen AI. And we have heard about rogue AIs, right? I mean, AI really going bad. And we have quite a few examples. Like, I think a few years back, Microsoft had this Twitter handle, which suddenly started, spouting sentiments, Nazi sentiments. And it created a lot of bad PR. That is one example, which is bad AI. The other one is on Uber. When they were testing out their autonomous vehicles, it was kind of cutting signals and going on the road. Now, that is irresponsible AI, right? So it is very important for us to understand that AI is not only about giving your machine a set of data and then letting it go. It is also about mentoring and grooming your AI to actually do the right things.
It looks like you are grooming up and growing your child.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. That's how it is, because you have to tell your children what is right and wrong. Right. That's us as parents. We are responsible for doing that. I think very similar when it comes to AI. And the fact that it is becoming so much a part of our businesses today, and like you said, the shock treatments and all, which businesses are thinking of doing, it is important that we don't let them off with just the basic data that you're giving it, but keep watching over them to ensure that they are becoming responsible in what they're doing and what they would be doing for the society, so that the people around them are not feeling threatened by AI, but actually accept them as part of the society itself. And that is why we say that there are probably 5 principles that any organization should be actually following when they're building something with AI, right? One is accountability. And some of these may seem like very obvious, but it is not, because we are keeping on hearing, you have your trust issues, and trust has become such a big thing now with Facebook and all that. So what it is telling is accountable for whatever is the decision being taken by AI. There should be a person or an organization or business behind it who will be accountable for why that happened. The second part is around transparency, right? Anything that happens, you should know what is the algorithm behind why it happened, or what is the kind of data that it took to really, once that incident has particularly happened. So the transparency needs to be there. You need to have, your honesty in what you're doing. So everybody should know whatever you're doing with AI, is it an honest, is it going by some of the legalities which actually bind any of our businesses? And then the design, everything you design should be for people, right? So it should be, the people should be at the heart of the design. And finally, it is about fairness. Like, you don't want to feed it some unbiased data, which it is kind of learning and then going and making some, errors out there, and then you get into bad light as a business, as an organization. So those are some 5 principles that the organization.
The last thing that you mentioned about, right, fairness of data or unbiased data, that kind of, I think recently when we looked about, there was the system that was built, or a data that was trained to kind of select applicants for a beauty context. And it so happened that every single time the system picked a white Caucasian person.
That's fairness, literally.
Literal fairness, exactly. So it had nothing to do with the way the system was built, right? The system was built right, but it was not taught right. It was not trained right.
Yeah.
So that kind of strikes a chord on, that's the importance of data, right? That's the importance of data veracity done right, or why you need to do that right. Now, I mean, when you think about the whole thing, technology has been in the fabric of us completely. The way we are actually, the way we learn, the way we work, and the way we even live. It's around the things that we're doing. And data is kind of literal paramount in that. And today, the volume of data, we measure it in petadata point. And what are we doing with that, right? And this data comes in lots of form. It could be unstructured data, could be structured, could be in a form of a media, or could come from multiple different sources. How are you harnessing the best out of this? How can enterprises actually analyze this, figure out patterns, and then harvest it to take them to the next level? Now that is leading to our next trend of data veracity as such, which not only talks about the accuracy of data, but also on how you can guard yourself against some of the issues that can crop up because of data. Now, just to give an importance of the data veracity as such, right? Air control towers. If you think about it, you will see it's like 360 degrees view of everything that's happening, and the controller behind is using the system or the view that's there for him to make decisions. Now, if I have a hacker that goes up and brings the system down, obviously it's going to disrupt business there. It's going to cause chaos, right? But now, think about it, not just going to stop a system. He goes there and manipulates the data. A hacker goes there and manipulates the data and feeds in wrong data. Here you have a person who's sitting behind the control tower, making decision with the wrong data that's there. Now, it's not about disruption of your business, but you're talking about life and death now. So that's kind of the importance of data veracity as such. Now, I think one of the things that Raji mentioned was in the trust factor, right?
Very important.
Now, with people being at the center of it, trust is very key for all businesses. Now, how does data and trust go hand in hand? Amazon. When Amazon realized that some of the feedbacks that were provided were all not genuine, but rather people just pushing some feedback there to increase the rating of their commodity that they were selling. So what Amazon did was put in a control there and introduced a feature called as verified reviewer. Very simple, right? What they were trying to do was, if you are a person who's bought that item, and then your review has that much more weightage than somebody just randomly adding this. Now that brought in transparency, that brought in clarity, and also the data that you could actually trust. Now that's how you could use data in the right way. Now we can't forget about our Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, right? It literally is an example of how data should not be used. Here, we actually use data to kind of change the course of the US election completely. And also on you're manipulating people's thinking and the way they are defined. So data, it's very important that we use data correctly and it's accurate. At the same time, the data veracity theme as such concentrates on how you could kind of how you could build a system to kind of avoid any of the pitfalls that could possibly come from using the data incorrectly. Now, organizations are increasingly using data to make critical strategic decisions, as a matter of fact, and also automated decisions. So, data veracity is paramount in any of these situations.
Agree. See, I think if I take cue from, you talk about data, you touched upon AI, the other fundamental part here is about business. And if you look at the business, it's primarily doing a value exchange between entities, be it a customer, your partner, or whatever. And what comes in the value exchange, paramountly important is the trust factor to it, right? Now, that makes a frictionless business, which is the next theme there, that traditionally the enterprises are not geared to provide an experience around a seamless experience for the customer. And none of the firms individually can actually stand up and provide that sort of a individualized service to the customer. So we definitely need a larger ecosystem to do that. And that's where the frictionless business part comes in. And if I look from a lens of platform business, which you talked about Amazon's verified user, and that's a classic example of how do you bring an ecosystem of buyer and seller to one common platform and bring a seamless experience and further improve to it. And you slice it down again, you see that some of the legacy platforms today, you take any of the long-standing business of 30, 40-year-old business, 70% of their spend still goes to the sort of legacy maintenance, right? Which is, I would say, by DNA, it is non-digital, right? So in a digital world, when you try to connect all these things, you need a lot of windows and doors open where you have a value exchange happening in a trusted way. And that's where the whole story about modernization comes in of the legacy systems. That's where the whole story about microservices comes in the legacy system. Recently, the example about what the Alipay has launched in China through Domino's Pizza stores, that you can smile and pay. Right? It brings that convenience, but you look at the technical intricacies and the kind of handshakes happening across the systems is all about bringing that frictionless business. You take examples of insurance companies, even companies in India do that. You book for an air travel and the travel insurance is embedded to it and the flight got delayed. You don't claim for it. When flight get delayed, it is available from the larger ecosystem on which flight got delayed, how many hours, is it 30 minutes or 3 hours. And when you actually land, you know exactly whether the flight has landed on that airport, and the moment it lands, you get a compensation for that insurance to it. You don't apply for it. It is primarily known to everybody. It's a trust factor in the system. You don't want a claimant to make that thing. You make the entire customer experience very seamless as part of it. And that's the crux of frictionless business. And very interesting theme. If you see the startups coming up and getting on to the whole ecosystem, challenging the legacy players here, we see that there are a lot of white space between all these, and that's where the interconnection to make a frictionless business comes in, right? So that's our core theme on the frictionless business. So let's kind of summarize all the 5 themes. And Sumitra, why don't you see what is your point of view when you see all the 5 themes coming together, and what is in store for each one of us?
So if you think about it, each of these themes that we spoke about, there is an underlying factor of trust. There is an underlying factor of being responsible. There's underlying factor of, for me, it suddenly seems like, while technology is there and there is so much happening with technology, the softer aspects are becoming more and more important, and that to me is the key to many of the themes that we spoke about. And there are so many more themes out there which I would definitely encourage all of you viewers out there to go and read up on. Our Technology Vision 2018 is out there, and you should be having the link to go and read up more. But thank you so much for listening in, and thank you for being such a great audience. And I do hope that we had a lot of fun, I think, talking about all the aspects that we have. And we hope that you also had just as much fun as we had. And if you're passionate about all these topics that we spoke about, please do come up and read up. And we would be happy to have you in our team, in the Accenture team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.